Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Brooke rejects Ridge after learning that Nick is terminally ill. Missed the boat with Nick's big comeback storyline. Nick's return to the Bold and the Beautiful thrilled fans. They looked forward to the beloved sailor reuniting with his lost love, Brooke. He was left devastated after months of anticipation. Brooke's reconciliation left fans feeling empty inside. The return of Jack Wagner was wasted on the show. Breaking up Ridge, once and for all. B&B mostly focused on Brooke's burning love for Ridge. She was determined to make him see that they were destiny. But he moved on with Taylor. The two were engaged to be married for a third time. However, that might change. Ridge chased Brooke around Italy. He didn't like seeing her go on a romantic boat trip with Nick, who wanted to win her back. He hoped that Brooke would finally see her destiny differently. But that boat trip went wrong. The boat malfunctioned and hit a nearby boat, tossing Brooke into the water. Ridge was at the right place, at the right time. He jumped into the water and saved Brooke's life. If it wasn't for him, she would have died. However, since Wagner is a legacy character, B&B fans on Reddit believe that this storyline wasted his potential. Missed the boat? Some fans think he should have returned to demolish Bridge for once and for all. So Jack Wagner took this 4-week job in exchange for this result? Where's the legacy, man? The initial poster inquired. Nick was done wrong with this mess. When I first heard Nick was coming back, I was hoping Bricky would reunite, and Tridge would have a nice stay on the back burner, someone else responded. I would love a Bridget and Nick reunion. Jack was wasted. A different fan wrote. This fan isn't alone. Bridget and Nick not being reunited is viewed as a missed opportunity by B&B viewers. They're both back in Los Angeles, so it would make sense for them to give their love another shot. A third fan pointed out a new mystery brewing. Where is Nick? Did they just leave him on his broken boat? Has he rolled off unconscious into the water? Hopefully, we'll find out what happened to Nick. Wagner wasn't expected to stick around for long. He's currently filming season 13 of When Calls the Heart. What did you think of Nick's return? Do you think B&B dropped the ball with this storyline? Please let us know in the section for comments. Ridge Forrester will become irate over this. Ridge Forrester is the kind of person who enjoys having his cake and eating it, too. Ridge Forrester is going to flip out over this. That is especially true when it comes to the two women in his life, Brooke Logan and Taylor Hayes. But now that Ridge has unceremoniously dumped Taylor Hayes and has gotten back with Brooke, a lot of people can't help but wonder if someone like Bill Spencer is going to take this opportunity and swoop right back in to take back Taylor. After all, it's happened in the past, and who is to say that it won't happen again, right? If Taylor dated Bill, Ridge Forrester would absolutely lash out, and he has numerous reasons for doing so. In fact, a number of B&B fans have stated, I don't see this pairing with Taylor and Bill. Taylor is a one-trick pony when it comes to romance. She's only after Ridge. Bill, on the other hand, I doubt he would find her even remotely intriguing. Additionally, Taylor shot Bill a long time ago. What is Taylor's next move? And another fan said, as for Bill and Taylor, that couldn't fly. She shot him because she thinks he's a predator who took advantage of her daughter. The following observation was also made, to me, the only drawback is that Bill owns the house she shared with Ridge. I don't want Taylor back in that house since it has too many memories of her and Ridge. It would not bother me at all if they moved into a downtown penthouse. She more or less accused him of sexual assault because she said Steffi wasn't in her right mind when they slept together. Brooke with the brutal, disorienting force of a physical blow, the sterile, antiseptic air of the hospital corridor suddenly thick and suffocating as the doctor's clinical pronouncement, terminal, weeks, maybe months, aggressive, echoed not just in her ears but deep within the marrow of her bones, shattering the fragile scaffolding of normalcy she'd clung to since her tumultuous reunion with Ridge. Nick, the man whose steadfast, often frustratingly patient love had been her harbor through countless storms, whose arms had held her when Ridge's world seemed perpetually to exclude her, whose gentle strength had rebuilt her confidence brick by painful brick after every Forrester-induced heartbreak. Nick was dying. The vibrant, sometimes stubborn, always fundamentally good man who had fought so fiercely for her, was now locked in a battle he could not win. This knowledge wasn't just sorrow, it was a tectonic shift in her universe, a fundamental reordering of every priority, every promise, every whispered declaration of love made in the soft, forgiving darkness with Ridge mere days, mere hours ago. The passionate intensity of their reunion, the decades of tangled history finally seeming to coalesce into something solid and enduring, now felt like a cruel, fleeting dream dissolving under the harsh, unforgiving light of impending, irreversible loss. To stand there, Ridge's hand still warm on her arm, his eyes burning with possessive love and the hard-won certainty of their future, while the image of Nick, pale, diminished, facing oblivion with a terrifying quietude, burned in her mind, created a chasm of agonizing dissonance within her soul. The Brooke who loved Ridge, who had yearned for him across continents and marriages, who believed their love was destiny itself, still existed, a raw and desperate ache in her chest. But she was instantly, irrevocably eclipsed by the Brooke who owed Nick everything, not just for the love he'd given, but for the unwavering sanctuary he'd provided, for believing in her when she struggled to believe in herself, for being the father her children adored, for being the rock when her world was quicksand. How could she possibly stand beside Ridge, basking in the hard-won glow of their reunion, knowing Nick was alone in a sterile room, grappling with the terrifying finality of his diagnosis? The very thought felt like the deepest kind of betrayal, a selfish indulgence she had no right to claim. The future she'd envisioned with Ridge, the shared laughter, the whispered plans, the simple comfort of growing old entwined, suddenly seemed grotesque, a gaudy spectacle playing out on the stage of Nick's tragedy. Every beat of her heart now echoed with a different rhythm, the frantic ticking of a merciless clock counting down Nick's remaining breaths. The love for Ridge, so powerful moments before, became a leaden weight, anchoring her to a path she could no longer tread. Turning to face Ridge, the physical act felt Herculean, as if moving through molten lead. She saw the confusion flicker in his eyes, the first tremor of dawning dread as he sensed the seismic shift within her before she even spoke. The warmth that had radiated between them chilled instantly, replaced by a suffocating vacuum. Ridge. Her voice, when it finally came, was a ragged whisper, scraped raw by unshed tears and the sheer impossibility of the words she had to utter. It wasn't loud, but it carried the finality of a slamming door. I can't. Not now. Not like this. His hand tightened reflexively on her arm, a possessive gesture that now felt like a shackle. Brooke? What are you talking about? Nick, it's terrible, devastating, but that doesn't change what we have. His words, meant to be reassuring, landed like blows. Doesn't change? Everything had changed. The entire axis of her world had tilted violently. It changes everything, she cried, the dam breaking as tears finally spilled over, tracing hot paths down her cheeks. Don't you see? He's dying, Ridge. The man who loved me unconditionally, who was there when everything fell apart, who is family, he has weeks. How can I stand here with you, planning a future, building a life, when he's facing the end of his? Her gaze locked onto his, pleading for understanding she knew, deep down, his nature might never allow. It would be unconscionable. It would be wrong. Ridge's expression hardened, the familiar storm clouds of jealousy and wounded pride gathering. So what? You're just going to, what? Run back to him? Play nurse? Out of pity? The word pity was a dagger, twisting cruelly. It's not pity, she retorted, her voice gaining strength fueled by a surge of protective fury. It's duty. It's loyalty. It's repaying a fraction of the debt I owe him for his love, for his constancy. He deserves not to face this alone. He deserves peace, comfort, love in whatever form I can give it, without the shadow of us hanging over him. She saw the fury ignite in Ridge's eyes, the Forrester arrogance rising to the surface. And what about my peace, Brooke? What about our love? We fought for this. We earned this. Are you telling me decades of history, of passion, of being destined for each other, means less than than being a charity case for a dying man? The crudeness of his phrasing, the sheer selfishness laid bare, took her breath away. It crystallized the impossible divide between them at that moment. He saw Nick as a rival, an obstacle, even in death. She saw a human being facing unimaginable horror, a man to whom she owed an immeasurable debt of kindness. "Is that all you see?" she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of heartbreak and disgust. "Charity? This isn't about choosing him over you, Ridge, not in the way you mean. This is about not being able to choose myself. Not being able to choose us. Not while he's suffering like this. To walk away from him now, to turn my back when he needs someone most. I couldn't live with myself. The guilt would poison anything we tried to build." She took a shuddering breath, the weight of her decision settling like stone. "I have to be there for him. I have to see him through this. There is no choice for me, Ridge. Not really. My heart," she pressed a hand to her chest, "is breaking. For him. For you. For everything we thought we had. But it breaks for him in a way that demands action. It demands I be present. And I cannot do that," her voice dropped to a near whisper, laced with unbearable sorrow, "and be with you." The silence that followed was deafening, thick with the ruins of their resurrected future. Ridge stared at her, his face a mask of disbelief, betrayal, and burgeoning rage. The love that had shone so brightly moments ago was now obscured by the dark smoke of his wounded ego and incomprehension. Brooke saw the exact moment the door between them slammed shut in his eyes, the moment he decided her choice was not noble, but a personal affront, a rejection of him and their epic love story. He didn't see the agonizing sacrifice, he only saw the denial. He didn't see her heart shattering under the weight of impossible loyalty, he only saw her turning away. "So that's it?" he finally rasped, his voice dangerously low. "After everything, you choose him? Even now?" Brooke closed her eyes for a brief second, absorbing the finality. "I'm not choosing him over you for a life together, Ridge. I'm choosing to honor the life he has left. I'm choosing to not abandon someone who never abandoned me. I'm choosing what my conscience demands." And right now, she opened her eyes, meeting his stormy gaze with a heartbreaking mixture of resolve and despair. "My conscience leaves me no room for us. I'm sorry. More sorry than you can ever know. But I have to go to him." Pulling her arm gently but firmly from his grasp felt like tearing off a limb. The physical separation mirrored the chasm that had just opened in their relationship. She turned away from the devastating wreckage in Ridge's eyes, from the love that had, moments ago, felt like her salvation, and walked back towards the hospital room, each step heavy with the burden of her choice. She wasn't walking towards Nick as a lover reclaiming her place, she was walking as a witness, a companion, a grateful friend determined to offer solace in the face of the abyss. The love for Ridge was still there, a deep, bleeding wound, but it was now shrouded in the immense, suffocating shadow of Nick's mortality. To embrace Ridge now would feel like dancing on a grave not yet dug. Her rejection wasn't born from a lack of love for Ridge, but from an overwhelming surge of compassion, guilt, and an unshakable sense of moral imperative towards the man whose time was running out, a rejection that sacrificed her own fragile happiness on the altar of another's devastating, inescapable end, leaving Ridge stranded on the shore of their reunion, watching the lifeboat of their future row resolutely towards a different, infinitely darker horizon. The return of Nick Marone, embodied once more by the charismatic Jack Wagner, to the sun-drenched shores of Los Angeles should have been a seismic event for The Bold and the Beautiful. A legacy character, deeply woven into the fabric of the Forrester/Logan dynastic drama, Nick represented a potent alternative to the show's central, endlessly recycled bridge narrative, the decades-long, soul-crushing ping-pong match between Brooke Logan and Ridge Forrester. Fans, weary from the latest iteration of Ridge's waffling, this time towards Taylor Hayes, buzzed with genuine anticipation. The promise wasn't just the return of a familiar face, it was the potential for disruption, for a true emotional reckoning, for Brooke to finally be presented with a viable, compelling path away from her Ridge-centric destiny. Yet, with astonishing speed and narrative negligence, the show transformed this potential tidal wave into a barely noticeable ripple, culminating in a boat malfunction that served as a grimly perfect metaphor for the storyline itself, a catastrophic failure that left everyone involved stranded and the audience feeling profoundly shortchanged, questioning why Jack Wagner even bothered to sail back into this particular port. The initial setup held undeniable promise. Brooke, reeling from Ridge's engagement to Taylor and her own desperate, almost pathological, clinging to the belief that Ridge was her unavoidable fate, was emotionally vulnerable. Enter Nick, her former husband, the man who once offered her genuine stability, unwavering devotion, and a passionate connection distinct from the perpetual turmoil of Bridge. His arrival wasn't just a nostalgic callback, it was a narrative lifeline thrown to a character, and arguably the audience, drowning in repetitive Ridge-Brooke-Taylor triangles. Nick represented a tangible what-if? A chance for Brooke to break her own destructive cycle, to choose happiness and peace over the exhausting, high-drama gravitational pull of Ridge Forrester. Wagner slipped back into the role with effortless charm, instantly reigniting the palpable chemistry with Catherine Kelly Lang's Brooke that had fueled their popular pairing years prior. This wasn't just a guest spot, it felt like the foundation for a significant, potentially season-altering, storyline. The stage seemed set for Nick to be the catalyst Brooke desperately needed, the strong countercurrent capable of finally pulling her free from Ridge's orbit. Instead, the show executed a breathtaking narrative U-turn, accelerating back into the suffocating embrace of Bridge with reckless abandon. Rather than allowing Nick's presence to challenge Brooke's core belief in her destiny with Ridge, the storyline became almost entirely about using Nick as a tool to provoke Ridge's jealousy. Brooke's interactions with Nick felt less like genuine reconnection or exploration of old feelings and more like calculated maneuvers designed to make Ridge notice, to make him squirm. The focus shifted rapidly from Nick and Brooke's potential to Brooke's single-minded determination to reignite Ridge's possessiveness. This fundamentally undermined Nick's agency and reduced him from a leading man in his own right to a mere plot device in the never-ending Bridge saga. The much-hyped romantic boat trip to Italy, ostensibly Nick's grand gesture to win Brooke back, became the ultimate expression of this narrative betrayal. It wasn't about Nick and Brooke rekindling their love amidst the Mediterranean sunset, it was a transparent setup for Ridge to swoop in and play the hero. The contrived boat malfunction, Brooke's plunge into the water, and Ridge's conveniently timed, life-saving rescue were plot points ripped from the most predictable soap opera playbook. It wasn't drama. It was a mechanical exercise designed solely to reinforce the Bridge connection through trauma bonding and heroics, completely sidelining Nick in the process. The aftermath was arguably more insulting to both the character and the audience than the accident itself. While Brooke recuperated, basking in the glow of Ridge's rescue, and inevitably sliding back into his orbit, her brief flirtation with independence seemingly forgotten, Nick simply vanished. The show displayed a staggering lack of curiosity about the fate of the man whose boat malfunctioned. Was he injured? Washed overboard? Dealing with Italian authorities? Trying to salvage the wreckage? The narrative silence was deafening. The original Reddit poster's baffled question, "Where is Nick? Did they just leave him on his broken boat? Has he rolled off unconscious into the water?" perfectly encapsulated the absurdity. One moment he's a central figure in a life-or-death drama, the next he's an inconvenient afterthought, unceremoniously discarded once his function as a jealousy trigger and near-death experience facilitator was complete. This abrupt, disrespectful disappearance treated Nick not as a beloved legacy character, but as disposable narrative litter. It highlighted the show's fundamental disinterest in exploring his story, his emotions, or his potential future, focusing solely on how his presence could service the Ridge/Brooke machine. The profound sense of missed opportunity extends far beyond the botched execution of this specific plot. Fans immediately recognized the wasted potential inherent in Nick's return, particularly given Jack Wagner's enduring appeal and Nick's established history. The most resonant lament on platforms like Reddit wasn't just about the bad writing, it was about the squandered alternatives. As one fan succinctly put it, "So Jack Wagner took this 4-week gig for this outcome? Where's the legacy, man?" The outcry underscored a deep desire for Nick to have fulfilled a more meaningful purpose, demolishing Bridge once and for all. He possessed the unique history, the genuine connection with Brooke, and the narrative weight to potentially be the force that finally allowed Brooke to break free, offering her a believable happily ever after away from Ridge. This wouldn't have just been satisfying for Nick/Brooke, Brookie, shippers, it could have provided crucial, long overdue evolution for Brooke's character and injected fresh dynamism into the show's core relationships. Furthermore, the show overlooked a poignant and organic alternative, reuniting Nick with Bridget. Both characters are back in Los Angeles, both carry the history of their complex marriage, and both have matured. As multiple fans pointed out, I would love a Bridget and Nick reunion. They wasted Jack. Reigniting Brooke offered rich emotional territory, navigating co-parenting with a grown child, Jack, confronting past hurts, exploring second chances with the wisdom of age, and providing Bridget with a compelling romantic storyline outside the Foresters. It was a ready-made, character-driven narrative arc that honored Nick's legacy and utilized Wagner's presence meaningfully, yet it was completely ignored in favor of propping up the stagnant Bridge. The disappointment surrounding Nick's return transcends a single poorly executed plot, it speaks to a larger, more concerning pattern within The Bold and the Beautiful, creative stagnation and a paralyzing fear of moving beyond the Ridge-Brooke-Taylor triangle. The show possesses a rich tapestry of legacy characters and unexplored potential pairings, yet it continually retreats to the perceived safety of its most worn-out dynamic. Nick's comeback was a golden opportunity to challenge the status quo, to prove the show could tell compelling stories outside the Bridge echo chamber. Instead, it became the most glaring example of the problem. Wagner's limited availability, filming when calls the heart, only amplifies the frustration. Knowing his time was precious makes the decision to waste it on a plot that served no lasting purpose for his character feel like an unforgivable miscalculation. They had a finite resource, a popular actor reprising a beloved role, and allocated it solely to generate a week of cheap jealousy and a contrived accident to service the same old couple. It was narrative myopia of the highest order. Ultimately, Nick Marone's 2025 return to The Bold and the Beautiful stands as a stark monument to missed potential and creative bankruptcy. What began as a thrilling promise, a chance for Brooke to break her chains, for a legacy character to reclaim his narrative significance, for the show to explore genuinely new emotional territory, crashed upon the rocks of repetitive storytelling. Jack Wagner's talent and Nick's history were sacrificed on the altar of Bridge, reduced to mere tools for a predictable, uninspired plot twist that left the character literally and figuratively abandoned. The fans' outrage, questioning the point, lamenting the waste, calling out the disrespect to the character's legacy, is entirely justified. The show didn't just miss an opportunity, it actively torpedoed it, leaving viewers with the hollow feeling that for Nick Marone, and perhaps for any hope of meaningful change in Genoa City's sunnier counterpart, they truly, definitively, missed the boat. The lingering question isn't about Nick's physical fate after the accident, it's whether the show itself can ever navigate away from the shallow, repetitive waters it seems determined to sail.